Okay, defensive operations. There's kind of two. I'm gonna deal with the first one because it's more in depth. That's when a country is getting invaded by an aggressor country, countries, coalition army groups, or unilateral army groups. I talked about the static line of defense, depending on the geography of your country. If the adjacent nations aren't allies or neutral, you're going to have to cover your northern frontier, southern frontier, eastern and western frontier. So you're going to end up with basically a box of your first forward static line of defense with forward army groups deployed, and their divisional rescue units, firefighting units, there to employ any breaches or gaps in that first line of defense. You can get by with using topography and putting less defensive troops where the ground suits you, such as mountain passes or rivers. And you can, if it's flat open land, highway land, you want more troops there. Like I said, you're going to be echelon defensively in depth, and you're going to have several fallback defensive lines in case the first one's overrun and annihilated. You're going to fight a fighting withdrawal to that second fallback defensive static line, or maybe even the fourth or fifth. When a country's invaded, it's considered total war. That's why I said you need to move your civilians and any men under age 14, or women under age 14, women, children under age 14 back to the center. Immediately can start groundworks for housing civilian populations in case of air raids. You immediately start building underground armaments factories. In total war, pretty much, you're going to be reassigned a job unless you're a doctor or a nurse. Those that are mentally handicapped will probably be stuck with a job they can handle. If they're physically fit, either working on defensive fortifications or working in a munitions factory. Most women, unless they're in the medical industry, are going to be reassigned a job in the armaments industry or food supply industry. It's total war. You want to have complete control of the air over your country, be it SAM sites, surface to air missile sites, and whatever air force you have, being able to dogfight and keep your air supremacy over your nation. That total war is a big thing because, like I said, you have to move civilian populations en masse, and your army groups at the defensive lines, north, south, east, west, with their operational HQ, division firefighting units, you're actually going to have army groups as divisional fighting units, firefighting units. Where if one north, south, east, west area is about to collapse, you're going to have to move an army group or two in there to shore it up. And like I said, the key is intel on the amount of enemy you're facing. Topography, use of your land and your defense. For instance, mountains and mountain passes, you don't want to employ as many troops. You want to employ a mountain corps that has the ability to do damage to an entire army group moving through a mountain pass with handheld anti-tank weapons and handheld surface-to-air missiles, and rivers and another thing, pretty easy to defend, especially if they're wide and deep, which require less troops. Open field, open land, highways are going to require your most troops. Your operational headquarters, division, firefighting units are there to shore up any gaps, corridors, breaches in your defensive line. And then, like I said, you automatically go on the counterattack. That's rule. You know, if they breach it, you seal it, go on the counterattack, and cut off whatever enemy units have been sealed behind the stemmed gap. Total war involves everybody in the country. Like I said, if you're a woman, you're probably not going to be doing that job you went to university for. You're going to be either put in an armaments factory making weapons, or in a food factory canning MREs or foods, and making packs of MREs for the troops, whatever. If you're a man unfit mentally for combat between age 14 and 80, you're either going to be, if your physical health's alright, you're going to be building defensive structures, those underground facilities I was talking about, defensive lines. Or if you're physically unfit, but if your mind's capable, you're going to be sitting at a communications center or something similar to that. But everybody in the nation is pretty much at total war at that point. And that falls under, you will have no more government. The military will be in command of the entire country. You want to employ your resources as best you can, like I said, do the topography, and pick your battles, your counteroffensives, due to your climate, because usually your enemy is not adjusted to your climate like you are, since you're a native of that country and they're an invading force. So, you know, if you have a harsh winter, you want to pick a harsh winter to counterattack the army attacking your country. You might launch a four-pronged counterattack against the north, south, east, and west, and see how much ground you can gain back, and actually put the enemy on the offense, on the defensive, which is the second part of defensive operations I'll talk about. That requires less talk than total war defensive operations. Linear static defensive operations have been incorporated for years, but due to modern weapons, they're easier to do. Another big thing about defensive operations is flexibility and freedom of movement, which means you might want to give up a bulge or that defensive line to the enemy with the future intention of making that bulge into a pocket and annihilating the enemy occupying that bulge, shoring up that original defensive line, and you have some offensive army groups caught in a pocket that they created, their bulge, that are cut off from supplies, and then you go back to offensive operations and compact that pocket and annihilate it. If you're on defensive operations in total war, you're not taking prisoners. You're going to annihilate every soldier in that pocket. You're going to kill them and inflict death, and that will hurt the offensive manpower and operations of the invading nations, army groups. Worst comes to worst, if you're losing a lot of ground, losing it fast, you're going to go to a tactical nuclear weapon if you have one. That's not a WMD. A tactical weapon is a small nuclear weapon designed to destroy an Army group. A WMD is an ICBM that's strategically used, and that's used to destroy cities. And that can go from your land, outer space, back to the enemy's land across the other side of the world. I'm just talking about total war and defensive operations right now, so I'll get back last to that and strategy. But like I said, in total war, you want all women and children under 14 move back to the interior, and unless they're a doctor or nurse, you're going to change your job description from lawyer or company CEO or whatever, advertising, whatever university education they have. They're going to end up in an armaments factory or a food factory. And that's just how it is. And I'm going to discuss more about total war and defense operations later. I'm trying to break it down into shorter video blogs. But like I said, it depending on your intel of what aggressive offensive army group you're facing, army groups, enemy nations, your topography, climate, all that plays a factor into your defensive preparation and operations. You have to have control of the skies over your country. That is priority number one. That way you're not getting bombed in the interior and having your airfields taken out in the interior. You want to make it hard as possible for the enemy to gain every meter of ground they can, meaning you want to inflict as much death as possible for every meter of ground they gain. So you want them basically fighting for every inch of ground in your country, and you want them to pay for every inch of ground in blood that they cause, and you want them to bleed white in the end and outlast them. That's defensive operations. You know, you're on the defense and you're trying to protect your country, your home, your way of life, your family, your friends, everything about what you know and were raised. And that's part of total war. I'll discuss more of total war later, but like I said, you might end up with 4 fronts, north, south, east, west, of echelon defensive lines with army groups at each of them. And those army groups have divisional HQ, operational, rescue, firefighting divisions, mobile, that they use to stem gaps, cut off enemy that's breached gaps, and counterattack. You always counterattack. Anytime a breach, corridor, gaps open in your defense, you seal it. You don't worry about the troops got past. You counterattack, and you let rear echelon mop up the troops that got past your defense by pocketing them and killing every one of them. You don't take POWs. That's just not, total war is not about POWs. You're not there to feed some enemy invading your nation. You don't have the money to, and really you don't have the right to. I'll get more in depth in defensive operations during total war in the next few blogs. This might take me a while. This is actually more complicated than offensive operations, but it's kind of a start. It's total war. Now, like I said, you want everybody on your frontiers, civilian and children under 14, move to the interior. You want your country creating basically underground city bunkers to protect those women and children during air raids if you can't maintain air superiority. And you want underground city bunker weapons factories to keep producing weapons to keep fighting the enemy. They have to have ammo, they have to have new weapons, because during any warfare Weapons are lost, men are lost, stuff is lost due to battle. You eventually have to call up the people physically fit for combat service. You know, here in America, PTSD, what I got, you know, and a lot of vets got, they won't let them do any military operations, but that'd be the first people you call up in total war because they're already used to combat. They're not scared of combat, and they're crazy. They'll get up and mow down as many people as they can with whatever weapon they got. Hopefully a heavy machine gun, and those will be the first people called back up. You know, even though they got PTSD, post-combat stress, whatever, they know military, they know combat, and they'll be a vital asset and aid to your army. You probably want to incorporate people with the combat mental illnesses with companies that are psychologically led strong by officer, and have him surrounded by men without PTSD just to keep him in check. But you know, the PTSD guy might say, hey, during the firefight, what the hell, get out and charge the enemy with an automatic rifle. See how many he can take out before they take him out. But I'll talk more about defensive operations and total war next. Then I'll go to the other part of defensive operations. That's about it. It's getting hot out here. I'm gonna go have lunch, start a book. Later.